Sorry, today is our anniversary, but I won't make it because of work. Please cancel the restaurant reservation. Bye. Wait! Before I could stop him, the call ended. Today is our special 20th wedding anniversary. I had reserved our favorite memory-filled restaurant, but my husband Christopher just canceled it last minute over a phone call. It's quite infuriating to be treated this way. It's clear now. Christopher chooses his mistress over me. Fine. I have a plan of my own. I already know who Christopher's mistress is. I immediately called some people. Can you come right away? All that's left is to make this the best anniversary for myself. I'm Jody, a 45-year-old housewife. I live with my husband Christopher and our middle school son, Cody. I met Christopher more than 25 years ago. I went to college, majoring in welfare studies, where Christopher was in my class. The moment I saw Christopher, it was love at first sight. He was a modern young man, handsome, the life of the class, always chatting happily with everyone, regardless of gender. It seemed like he was often confessed to by girls. I, on the other hand, was more of a spectator, watching from a distance. Back then, I dressed plainly. So, compared to the girls around Christopher, I felt inferior. I liked Christopher, but never initiated a conversation with him. Our sudden closeness started during an internship. In our department, there was a 1 week internship at a nursing home. The period is 1 week. Classes are divided into multiple facilities and conducted. Due to the nursing homes being busy and short-staffed, they could only take in a few students. Christopher and I were assigned to the same facility. When the teacher announced it, I was envied by the other girls. Internally, I was overjoyed to be with Christopher. We had to go to the internship site on our own, with teachers occasionally checking in. So it was mainly student run. That's when Christopher asked for my contact information, and we went to the nursing home together. Our main task was to be companions to the elderly residents. We assisted with meals and bathroom visits. Every day after the internship, Christopher and I would have dinner at a nearby restaurant. It finished at 5 p.m., perfect for dinner. We both liked the restaurant's menu, which was another reason to go together. During those meals, we discovered our shared love for a particular singer. That brought us even closer. Our relationship continued even after the internship. We'd meet after classes and sometimes go to karaoke together, always singing our favorite artists' songs. There was always laughter between us. Eventually, we started dating. After graduating, we chose different paths. Christopher became a caregiver while I joined a company dealing with care products as an office worker. Our relationship continued, and on our 5th anniversary of dating, always singing our favorite artists' songs. During the proposal, I have irregular hours and night shifts in my job, Jody. I don't want us to drift apart. So would you quit your job and become a housewife? Christopher said. My office job was 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Holidays are Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays. While Christopher's shifts were irregular, often getting weekdays off. We dated, but aligning schedules was hard. I wanted more time with Christopher, so I decided to become a housewife. Soon after our marriage, Cody was born. Christopher was overjoyed. Jody, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have a son, Christopher said, tears of joy in his eyes. Seeing him like that made me feel incredibly warm. We would become even happier, I believed. However, after 20 years of marriage, things with Christopher changed. The sweet atmosphere we once had was gone. Perhaps the lack of comfort in our life is to blame. Christopher's job in caregiving doesn't pay much, and with Cody facing high school entrance exams, expenses are rising, so I'm always trying to save money. I go around supermarkets to buy the cheapest ingredients, and I pack lunch for Christopher and Cody every day. I've stopped caring about my looks, and my clothing has become even plainer than my college days. The only makeup I own is a lipstick. In this state, I guess Christopher doesn't see me as a woman anymore. In fact, he seems annoyed by me. Probably thinks I've given up on being a woman. Each time I realize this, I feel so empty. Today, Christopher is on a day shift, so he's home in the evening. Christopher, lounging on the living room sofa, watching TV. I approach him. Christopher, can you take a shower first? I'll get dinner ready in the meantime. But Christopher doesn't respond. Instead, he glares at me silently, then heads straight to the bathroom. Cody, used to this by now, doesn't even look at Christopher. After Christopher leaves the room, I let out a quiet sigh. Christopher complains to me daily, like talking to himself. Working every day and still no spare cash, all because of the unemployed at home. I'm really pathetic. Christopher sighs and says such things. I was shocked the first time he said this. It was Christopher who asked me to be a housewife when he proposed. Complaining about it now is unfair. That's why I can't understand Christopher's feelings. But Cody is already in middle school. I have more free time now. Maybe it's better financially if I work too. I give Christopher a positive response. Cody is growing up, so I'll start working. It's not fair for you to work all the time. But that wasn't the answer Christopher wanted. He glares at me. Then he shouts, If you start working, the neighbors will think I'm useless. Don't embarrass me. Huh? Christopher leaves in a bad mood, going to his room. What am I supposed to do? I'm confused. Cody looks at me, a bit worried. I'm stuck in this cycle, not allowed to work, but blamed for not working. My heart is gradually wearing down. Then, one day, Christopher comes home in a better mood than usual. As soon as he opens the front door, he smiles at me, who's come to greet him. I'm home. Got some donuts as a treat. Pick whatever you like. He hands me a bag filled with donuts. Ah, thanks. I'll let Cody choose his favorite. I'm puzzled by Christopher's sudden gift. Jody, you always work hard at home. I appreciate it. Christopher smiles gently. I haven't seen this side of Christopher in years. Can you wash my work clothes too? And like always, Christopher hands me his backpack. Sure. I take his backpack and start checking its contents. That's when I feel something's off. Christopher's used work clothes are in the backpack, which I always wash immediately. Otherwise, stains might not come out. So today, like always, I begin to wash them. But then a woman's handkerchief falls out of a pocket. Eh? I'm frozen in shock, but Christopher doesn't notice my reaction. As it is, I'm going to take a bath. He hums a tune and heads to the bathroom. I retreat to my room and call someone. Hello? Risa? It's me. Jody, what's up so suddenly? Luckily, Risa answers right away. Risa was a friend from college, in the same class as Christopher and me. Risa was cute and stylish, a central figure in the class. We weren't close at first, but after I started dating Christopher, Risa and I became friends. Jody, you're dating Christopher, right? Let's be friends. Risa had approached me. I was happy she wanted to be friends. Even after graduating, we occasionally kept in touch. Risa got married right after college, but I heard she divorced 6 months ago. And just a month ago, Jody, listen, I met Christopher today at the nursing home I just started working at. It just so happened that Risa's new job was at the same facility where Christopher worked. Since then, she occasionally shared stories about Christopher's workplace. So I thought Risa might know something. I consulted Risa about Christopher, about the unfamiliar woman's handkerchief I found. Could it be that Christopher is cheating? I asked Risa, my voice close to tears. Despite his harsh treatment, I still loved Christopher. The thought of him cheating was painful, but Risa just laughed it off. Maybe he just picked up someone's lost item and forgot to return it. You're worrying too much, Jody. Really? I sounded unsure, but Risa laughed. Don't worry about Christopher. I'm keeping an eye on him for you. Risa? I almost cried at Risa's kindness. What a wonderful friend I have. Surely, with Risa watching over Christopher, everything would be fine. I believed that at the time. But Christopher's returns kept getting later. He often claimed night shifts and didn't come home at night. As someone who loves Christopher, it's hard not to feel down. Is he really cheating? I spent each day filled with this uneasy feeling. Then one day, Jody, I'm home. Christopher seemed very cheerful today, apparently having had a drink. It was rare for Christopher, who seldom drinks, to come home drunk. Confused, I watched as Christopher, still in high spirits, spoke. I'm sweaty. Gonna take a bath. Hey, wait. Christopher didn't notice my attempt to stop him and headed straight for the bathroom. No choice then. I sighed and picked up Christopher's backpack. That's when I noticed something in the backpack. Christopher, you left your mobile phone in here. Christopher always carried his mobile phone with him, even in the bath. But here it is, right now. I stared at the mobile phone. Then, a notification for a new message popped up. Hey, no way. I was stunned to see the sender, because it was someone unbelievable. The messages displayed on the screen were enough to confirm the affair, making my hands tremble. While I was frozen, more messages kept coming in, all from the same person. Unforgivable. Silently, I took pictures of the incoming messages. Then came our anniversary. Every year, we dine at a memory-filled restaurant. Cody was at his grandparents' house for the day, and for today only, I had splurged on a special course reservation. Reservation time was 7 p.m. I had informed Christopher, and we planned to meet at the restaurant's entrance. 15 minutes before the reservation, I was already waiting for Christopher at the entrance. Surely, even if he's cheating, he'd respect our anniversary. I believed so, but that faint hope was soon shattered. My phone rang. It was Christopher. Christopher, what's wrong? Thinking Christopher might be running late, I hurriedly answered. But Christopher just laughed lightly and made a cruel announcement. Sorry, it's our anniversary, but I won't make it because of work. Please cancel the restaurant reservation. Bye. Wait. Before I could say more, the call ended. Today is our special 20th anniversary. I had reserved our favorite restaurant, but Christopher canceled it last minute with just a phone call, and his attitude showed no remorse. It was extremely frustrating. I went into the restaurant to cancel and apologize. It was a same-day cancellation. I paid the full course fee as a cancellation charge. Filled with frustration, not just the fee, but the inconvenience to the restaurant bothered me. They must have prepared the special course already. Causing trouble to our memory-filled restaurant was heartbreaking. I had an idea of where Christopher might be. Because of the recent message notifications, I knew someone had invited Christopher to a fancy hotel dinner. Christopher prioritized his mistress over me. It seemed he had received dinner invitation tickets by chance. The course at the restaurant he chose was much more expensive than the one I had reserved, and it was a place we normally couldn't afford. So he must be on his way to dinner with his mistress right now. I clenched my fists in frustration. Christopher really chose his mistress over me. But it's fine. I have a plan. I already know who Christopher's mistress is. It's time to act and make him realize his mistake. I don't care about Christopher anymore. Having our anniversary ignored has completely cooled my feelings for him. I'll definitely get my revenge. I sent an email to Christopher. Cody and I are going to have a Christmas party at my parents' place. We're going to stay overnight and return tomorrow evening. Since he had only reserved dinner at the luxury hotel, I was sure Christopher would bring his mistress home if I said this. As expected, Christopher replied soon. Sorry, enjoy your time with Cody at your parents'. I'll relax alone at home after work. Christopher didn't seem to doubt what I had said. Such a carefree person. I gripped my mobile phone, then I immediately called certain people. Can you come right away? All that's left is to make this the best anniversary for myself. I couldn't suppress my laughter. The people I called arrived in about 30 minutes to an hour. They were Christopher's relatives and Reese's relatives. And one more, a special guest. Jody, why did you suddenly call us to your house? And why is Sophie and her family here? My mother-in-law Caddy asked, perplexed, as soon as she arrived. Christopher's and Reese's mom, Sophie, were acquainted. There were parent gatherings at my college, and the parents got to know each other there. It was a small college, and Christopher, Reese, and I were all in the same class. There were many events like college festivals and presentations, so naturally the parents interacted. That's why my mom knew Sophie and got her contact information from her. It was a surprise to be asked to bring the family all of a sudden, Sophie said with a wry smile. However, she didn't seem angry and brought Reese's dad and grandparents. Could you look at this? I showed the screen of my mobile phone to Christopher's and Reese's relatives. It was a message notification previously sent for Reese to Christopher. The content was like, I have an invitation to a luxury hotel dinner. Let's go on a date together. And it's your anniversary with Jody, right? But you'll prioritize your girlfriend, me, won't you? What is this? Caddy's expression changed drastically, turning pale. Her own son Christopher's affair. She must be feeling disturbed. The father-in-law and other relatives seemed disgusted. The parents-in-law always seemed to get along well, so it must be even harder for them. Sophie looked shocked. Risa, being the mistress? She turned pale as if she was about to faint. If Risa's dad hadn't supported her, she might have collapsed. Risa's grandmother also looked incredulous. As everyone was nearing panic, I calmly explained. Christopher and Risa are having an affair. Today was our anniversary with Christopher, but he canceled our plans and is dining with Risa at a luxury hotel. Christopher? I thought he was doing well with Jody. Caddy looked like she might collapse in shock. The father-in-law's face was red with anger towards Christopher. I was somewhat pleased that they were angry on my behalf. It felt like they were supporting me, his wife. Risa's parents were too shocked to speak. They seemed unwilling to believe it. The other relatives felt the same. But exposing them here wasn't the end. To make this the best anniversary for me, I needed to add the final touch. I quietly told Christopher and Risa's relatives. Christopher and the others should be returning soon, so could you all please wait here with me? Everyone nodded quietly to my words, and after a while, I'm home. Huh? No one's here. Excuse us. Christopher and Risa returned home. Christopher seemed cheerful, perhaps from drinking. Risa also seemed happy to be at the house. Welcome back, I quietly greeted the two. Immediately, Christopher and Risa panicked. Why are you here? Jody, weren't you supposed to be at your parents' today? Christopher, you said that, right? Risa looked displeased. Christopher was clearly confused. Yeah, lying like that? That's not what decent people do. Christopher was about to confront me when Caddy, waiting in the living room, stepped in between us. Christopher, how could you cheat with Risa and cancel your anniversary with Jody? Shame on you, Caddy said, looking like she was about to cry, disappointed by her son's disgraceful behavior. Huh? Mom? Why are you here? Christopher was shaken by Caddy's appearance. The in-laws usually don't come to this house. Although close by, the house isn't that spacious. If needed, Christopher and I would visit them. As I thought about this, Sophie also appeared. That's right, Risa, at your age, being Christopher's mistress? Just divorced and already doing such things? Mom, why are you here? Risa was bewildered, at a loss. I got a call from Jody. Risa, your previous divorce was also because of your affair, wasn't it? I'm utterly disappointed. Sophie shouted hysterically. Christopher seemed to hear this for the first time. Risa was married? And what do you mean affair? He confronted Risa. Risa, it's just something from before we met again. So what? Retorted. The conversation was going nowhere. While Christopher and Risa argued, other relatives gathered at the entrance. Christopher's family and Risa's grandparents were there, and all of them were glaring at Christopher and Risa. In this situation, Christopher and Risa were even more rattled. Why is Uncle here? This doesn't make sense. Why are grandmother and the others here? This is unbelievable. Risa screamed, holding her head. I called them, I answered calmly. Then Christopher and Risa lashed out. Why did you call not only our parents, but also relatives? That's right. The grandparents have nothing to do with this. Christopher and Risa yelled, oblivious to the seriousness of their actions. I pulled out some documents from an envelope and thrust them at Christopher and Risa. Don't you understand when you see this? You two have been having an affair, right? It was the result of a private investigator's inquiry. For about 2 weeks, I had them investigate Christopher and Risa's affair. The results were damning. Several incriminating photos had been taken. Lately, Christopher had been saying, I have night shifts, so I won't be home today. But those were mostly lies. He was repeatedly going on dates with Risa. I was utterly disgusted. Holding the investigation results, both of them turned pale as they read, This is, well, Christopher tried to make excuses, but seemed at a loss. His voice was slightly trembling. Risa also turned pale. How come these photos were taken? She muttered. Then Risa began tearing up the investigation results in front of everyone. Risa, what are you doing? Sophie tried desperately to stop her, but Risa continued tearing. After finishing, she laughed. Now there's no evidence of the affair. Jody, you're so naive to hand over such important proof. Risa, you're a genius. Jody, this is what happens when you get too cocky. Reflect on yourself a bit. Christopher seemed pleased. What on earth? Sophie was in shock. The other relatives also looked at Christopher and Risa with disbelief. However, I was unfazed by Risa tearing up the investigation results. I smiled at Sophie. It's okay, and said, then I addressed Christopher and the others. Don't worry, I made copies for every single one of your relatives. Huh? I said that and began distributing the copies to the relatives. Risa was in a frenzy, yelling, Stop it! But of course, I ignored her. Everyone looked at the investigation results, feeling disillusioned. This is so disappointing. Even Sophie muttered with a serious expression. The in-laws were red-faced with shame for their family's disgrace. I can't believe our affair got exposed. I thought we were careful. Christopher muttered in frustration. Risa was silent. I addressed the stunned Christopher and Risa. What a pity. If you had prioritized our anniversary today, Christopher, I was willing to forgive you. Even after knowing about the affair, I still loved Christopher. I thought if he prioritized our anniversary today, I would overlook his and Risa's affair. But the outcome was unfortunate. In the end, Christopher chose Risa over his longtime partner, me. Also, about you, Risa, if you hadn't chosen our anniversary for your dinner, none of this would have happened. As I said this and glanced at Risa, she clenched her teeth. I continued. What were you thinking advising me? Thought you were in a superior position? Well, now, Risa, you're in a real tight spot. I laughed. Risa looked truly frustrated. She thought she was superior to me, but now she had been outsmarted by me. Then Christopher and Risa noticed someone else present. Hey, why is the facility director here? Christopher muttered. The director? Risa also noticed the facility's director, Tim. I answered with a smile. Today's special guest, not a relative, but in a way, you two's responsible person, right? That's why I secretly invited him. Huh? Christopher sounded incredulous. Risa turned pale. I knew where Christopher worked, so it was easy to get Tim's contact. I was uncertain if Tim would come, but when I explained the situation, I'll be there, he replied immediately. Tim also seemed to feel responsible for hiring Risa. As soon as he arrived at our house, Tim apologized. I'm sorry for the trouble caused, he said, and bowed his head. But the ones at fault were Christopher and Risa. I reiterated that to Tim and asked for his cooperation, which he readily agreed to. Then Tim began to speak quietly. I'm disappointed in both of you, especially Christopher, who has a wife. Tim said and sighed deeply. Tim, this wasn't an affair. It was just to strengthen the staff's camaraderie. Christopher desperately tried to explain. Risa nodded frantically. But Tim had a copy of the investigation report I had given him. There was no escaping it. Can you call this camaraderie? Tim opened a page. There was a photo of the two embracing. Ah, Christopher lost his strength and sat down upon seeing it. Risa's face showed despair. You two will be on suspension from tomorrow. Expect a decision on your punishment later, Tim firmly informed them. No, Tim, please. I absolutely don't want to be fired. Christopher tried to cling to Tim. I don't want this either. I just got hired. And now if I get fired, I'll be on the streets. Risa cried. Amid the chaos, I addressed Christopher. Christopher and I are getting a divorce. I'll have custody of Cody, but that's okay with you, right, Christopher? Huh? I spoke with a smile. He had disregarded his family so much. To Christopher, Cody and I were probably no longer necessary. But Christopher wouldn't accept it. There's no way we're getting a divorce in this situation. I might lose my job, and Risa and I weren't serious. It was just for fun. Christopher's words struck Risa hard. What? Christopher, you said you'd divorce Jody and marry me. I believed you. Risa, rejected by Christopher, burst into tears. Her makeup smeared her face a mess, yet she kept crying. But there was no sympathy for Risa. Risa's parents looked at her coldly. Neither Christopher nor Risa had any allies left. The in-laws and Christopher's relatives looked at Christopher with condemnation. In such a situation, Christopher was no, this is clearly bewildered. While inwardly laughing at Christopher and Risa's obvious disarray, I said, since this divorce is due to Christopher's infidelity, I'll be demanding compensation and child support. And of course, I'll demand compensation from Risa as well. At the mention of compensation, Christopher reacted excessively. Compensation and child support? I can't pay that on my meager salary. Be reasonable. Risa, who had been crying until then, glared at me and yelled, That's right! How can we pay on such a low salary? Do your research before you say such things. I couldn't help but laugh at their remarks, saying such things about their salaries in front of their employer, Tim. Tim was quietly angry. This was surely a guarantee of their dismissal. The relatives of both were frowning deeply. It seemed harsh punishment awaited the two. In a way, this turned out to be the best anniversary ever, I said with a smile. Soon after, my divorce from Christopher was finalized. Christopher resisted quite a bit, but undeniable evidence was against him. Throughout his time at home, he kept saying, Let's not divorce, let's live as we used to, with a near tearful face. But neither I nor Cody had any such intention. Cody, affected by the whole situation, I'm disillusioned. I'll live as if Dad doesn't exist anymore, declared to Christopher. That must have been a shock for Christopher. Cody also repeatedly persuaded me to free myself from Christopher. Eventually, Christopher resigned, signed the divorce papers. Soon after the divorce was finalized, Cody and I had to leave the house. Christopher desperately resisted even then, Please don't leave. I've been fired, and I didn't know what to do alone, Christopher said, holding his head. Afterward, both Christopher and Risa were quickly dismissed from their jobs. Affairs within the facility were unacceptable. Tim made the decision promptly. I spoke to the distraught Christopher. That's your own responsibility, isn't it? Anyway, we're strangers now. Just make sure to pay the compensation and child support, I said matter-of-factly, but Christopher clung to me. I've been disowned by my parents, shunned by relatives. I have no money. I can't possibly afford compensation or child support, Christopher said, breaking into tears. For Christopher, who had always been at the center of people's attention, being alone must have been hard. But that was his own fault. I hope he sincerely reflects and compensates with money. Risa, on the other hand, paid a reasonable amount of compensation. It seems her parents fronted it for her. She apparently has to pay them back now. Although Risa wasn't disowned by her parents or relatives, she faces a difficult path ahead. This cheating incident is quite disgusting. The scandalous affair will likely bring constant remarks from relatives. Risa is currently working day jobs to pay off the compensation her parents covered. The work must be tough, especially at her age. She will surely struggle for a while. Since then, I returned to my parents' house with Cody. My parents were extremely worried, and I felt truly sorry. However, I couldn't stay down forever. I immediately started looking for work. Job hunting as a former housewife isn't easy. Many applications didn't even get past the initial screening, and even after interviews, I often didn't receive an offer. I shed tears over rejection letters, but after applying to dozens of companies, I finally got a job. The job I was hired for is a home care service. The main duties are cooking dinner and cleaning. This seemed like a good fit for my experience as a housewife. My parents and Cody are supporting me. There are many new things to learn, but I am determined to do my best.